Welcome back, everyone, to Creating Genius. And today with me, I have Bret Kennedy, the founder of Quantum Apparel. Quantum Apparel is a clothing company with the goal of helping people raise their vibration through what they wear, as well as the messages that the clothing themselves actually spreads. He is a super interesting guy. He's lived many iterations of his life. He's done work in real estate, fitness, cryptocurrency. He's traveled all around the world. And I'm really excited to have him here to share what he's learned with us on that journey. So, Bret, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Jacob, it is an honor to be here. As I said to you earlier on, this is my first podcast, so thanks for the cherry pop. It's all good, but yeah, it's like life changes so much, and like you said, I've done a lot of different things. And the most recent is the clothing line. But yeah, it's exciting to be here. I can't wait to get into everything that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so I'd say let's just jump right in. Tell me a bit about the vision for Quantum Apparel. I teased it a little bit in the intro, but if you could just kind of go more in depth on like what that means to you and why clothing? Out of all the ways you could have spread this message, why clothing?
Yeah, it started off last December, so it's actually like really, really new. So like, I mean, we're May now, so it's very early on in the year. And to have this business idea come up in December last year, I was at a retreat. And like I met you, I met some amazing people at this retreat, and we're in Mexico, and we went to Tulum just to go and see some of the ancient sites. And there was like a museum off the end of the exit, which was about a guy who had worked through his spiritual awakening and gotten through a whole heap of his issues through photography, which I thought was really interesting, because you don't necessarily feel like when you have this epiphany or this spiritual awakening that it's just going to be through pictures. But he had like these mystical experiences and his life journey over a number of years played out through photography. So we walked through this museum, and his basis was horses. He loved his whole thing was horses. So he had these beautiful pictures of horses running free in the field, on the beach, and all that sort of stuff. It was really, really interesting. And then at the end, you always go through a gift shop, right? There's always that we need support, and this is how we support it by a gift shop. So we went through, and there was a couple of t-shirts. There was one t-shirt that was like specifically about him, and he had a picture of this. He had a main horse that he took a lot of pictures of that he got really a deep connection with. And so he had this picture, and it was like a cartoon style drawing. So it was just like a 2D basic lines, but the horse was there, and then it had the word liberation on it. And we're just like, that is an amazing shirt. Simple as it is, but it's like that sort of, I want to liberate myself. I want to do things for myself. So we ended up buying one. Three of us bought one each. So they got a good deal out of us. And I bought a second one, which was just a saying that was like, what you seek is actually seeking you. Through some discussions with my friends, apparently the translation's a little off, but I don't mind. But it was from Rumi. And Rumi has a lot of these amazing sayings as well. So I bought that. And we're back at the resort having dinner, and we're talking about these shirts, and we're just like, where can we get these shirts? Like, there's no real place where anyone sells something specifically for the spiritual community, and it's not even necessarily spiritual. It's just like uplifting. You can go on places like Etsy and eBay and Amazon, and you'll find them, but I don't feel like there was anything dedicated to doing this sort of thing. So we're like, me being the entrepreneur that I am, it's like, there's the business in that. There's something that I could do twofold, which is help people and make money. I'm like, all right, that seems pretty good. So I sort of molded over for a while, and then just started coming up with company names, and went through about 6 or 7 iterations. And then we found that Quantum Apparel sort of sat really well. And the reason we chose Quantum, or the reason I chose Quantum Apparel, was because with the practice that I do, and you and a lot of other people that we sort of meet at these retreats, it's all about getting into a quantum reality to try and bring forward that piece of yourself that exists somewhere in the quantum field where everything exists at one time, and bring it back to you and become that better person. So I'm just like, that kind of resonates with what I'm trying to achieve with the clothing. We're trying to help people, and as you said earlier, raise their vibrations. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But essentially, just through cool t-shirts, just through cool clothing, help people raise those vibrations. So I got back to Australia. I was in Mexico at the time, and I'm obviously based out of Australia. I got back to Australia and sort of started working on it. And I was working with a guy in Bali who does mind movies. And his whole thing is like, I want to help people bring their future self to them with mind movies. So I sort of did some work with him, and we worked on the business a lot more side of things, and then brought that into the mind movie. And one of the things he said was like, you need to make sure that this is a business. And me being me, I'm just like, of course it's a business, dude. But I thought about it. This business is going to make like thousands and thousands of dollars in its first 6 months, which is what every entrepreneur wants, but it's not necessarily how it really goes. Because if you
Yeah.
don't do the research, if you don't do the business ladder stuff, it doesn't matter how good your idea is, it's just not going to work. And I've learned that a lot of times. So what we
Hmm.
ended up doing was doing some sneaky advertising through like 10 or 15 Facebook groups. And essentially what it was like, all right, guys, like we're all part of this community. I really like the idea of having these cool t-shirts. What do you think? And if you do think that they're a good idea, would you be interested in getting one at cost just to see what it's like? So we did that as a bit of a base and a test. And we're just like, all right, that needs to have, we sort of set a goal. Like we need to have X number of likes, comments, replies for us to feel like it's a good idea. And so out of the 5 groups, we ended up getting the right amount of likes, comments, and whatever for us to think, all right, there's something there. And then what I ended up doing was contacted every one of the people who liked or commented and created a WhatsApp group. So I have like 30 people in this spiritual WhatsApp group, and it was just about talking and discussing and creating this idea for the shirts. And I had this idea while I was in Cancun in Mexico, and sort of talked to a couple of other friends outside of my local group, and they're all like, yep, I'd buy a shirt. Yeah, 100%, I'd be in that. And then during that conversation, a day or two later, a friend of mine sent me an Instagram reel that talked about vibration levels of clothing, of materials. And I was like, hang on, this is sort of syncing up with my thought process and what is in align with what we want to do. And so there was a list of different clothing types, and it went through like polyester, hybrid polyester, cotton, 100% cotton. Then I went through hemp, bamboo, and up and up. And there was a level that each material vibrated at. It's like, all right, so this in conjunction with like sayings or words that help make people feel better, even just in the logistics of A plus B equals C, having those different things at a vibrational level that may be higher than what you're at now is going to help you raise your vibration without doing anything at all. So maybe it
Yeah.
could be something as simple as like you throw on a t-shirt, you feel good, and then all of a sudden you do a meditation and your meditation's better. Or you have a crappy day and you like read this t-shirt that's in your closet and you're like, oh, that makes me feel good. I'll put it on, and then you wear it for the day. And then just some kind of little catalyst to get you out of that mood that you're in. And then what ended up happening was over the last 4 months, this little group of mine, we created 3 different shirts that we thought were going to be the best starting point. Once they were all decided on, we designed them. I brought in a designer to help me create this thing. Once they were all approved by the group, I went to the manufacturer and got some manufacturing samples done. I ended up going through 6 manufacturers before I found the one that I wanted. They sent them over to me, and essentially now we're in a position where we have the samples, we have the materials that we're going to be using and what we're trying to achieve. And our goal now is to increase our reach and our following on Instagram, on the social medias.
Yep.
And then launch. So we've actually just sort of done a pre-launch, and we're just waiting to get some more followers and just keep spreading the word. So that's kind of where it came from. It just came from a couple of us looking at some shirts at a museum and going, "That's a good idea," and I'm the one who ran with it.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love the connection to horses too, because so you know the human heart, like our electromagnetic field that the heart emits is 4 feet for a human.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like 25 feet for a horse because their
Is it
heart is
really?
like this big and it's so power. It's like one of the most energetically powerful animal hearts out there, and
That says
I
a
think
lot to
it's
that guy's thing. Definitely.
mm-hmm. And that's so cool that that's the inspiration, and you found it from this guy who connected with these creatures that have such
Yeah.
an amazing energetic field. And I love that. And so I want to, there are a few things. You gave me a lot there, um,
This could be a 5 hour
which is
podcast.
fantastic. This is fantastic. Gotta find the Guinness World Record of the longest podcasts and just shatter it. Um, so kind of circling back to, so you have the inspiration,
Yeah.
and I think the idea of you like finding groups of people that you're like, these people would be interested in it, and
Yeah.
basically like almost outsourcing ideas to
Yeah.
them and creating the group is such a great idea. And where did you, was it just kind of the entrepreneur in you that came up with that? Was there something kind of behind that? Oh, let me try to get a bunch of people involved and get their opinions and get their takes on it. Like, where did that come from?
I wish I could take credit for that one, but me being the shotgun entrepreneur just wanted to go to market straight away. Working with the guy who was helping me with the mind movies, he has a background in entrepreneurship and helping startups to get to where they need to be, and that was his idea. He's like, a really good way to, first of all, it's kind of like vetting, right? You always want to make sure that your product is going to be viable. Doesn't matter how good you feel about it. Doesn't matter how much you love it. Yes, passion projects do make it, but if the market's not there, if people are not interested, you can just be putting in so much effort and so much time, and it's for naught. You make sales, but you're not profitable. You want this to be a passion project where you work 60, 80 hours a week. You don't want to work 60 or 80 hours a week to then go and work a second job because your business is not working, right? So he really was a voice of reason in that he's like, we should really do this, this, and this. And he's like, what you can do then is you can create a community that is hyped about it, because the more the community is hyped about it, the more that they're going to pass that on to their friends and family and spread it. And that's how that word of mouth thing goes through social media, right? So most of those people from the social community follow me on Instagram, and I sort of ask them to help just by sharing the posts, and it just increases the reach a lot more. So yeah, I'd love to take responsibility for that one, but that wasn't me.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do a mind movie yourself?
Yes, I have done it a few times, and I've got one that I've updated and edited. But I honestly, I'm one of those kinds of people. I guess ADHD, ADD is the biggest sort of thing that you talk about. I have like 1,000 thoughts a second, and for me to try and process one or do the next one, I get lost. So I have to sort of pare it back. And honestly, I forget to do it. I've got it
Mm-hmm.
and I've done it, but I have not used it. I haven't used it to its full potential, to be honest. And it was funny because just the other week, I'm just like, I paid this guy this money. We worked through this mind movie and I'm not using it. And it's literally like 6 minutes out of my day. So it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. It's just a matter of like sitting down, watch it, have the kaleidoscope playing, and then go from there. So I think it's definitely something that he built his business around it, because what he ended up doing was like he run his own little studies. He's like, yeah, so here's 60 people. We're going to do this, this, and this. And he created his process out of the failings and the winnings of that group, and sort of come up with his own formula. And then honestly, he did the
Gotcha.
same thing. He posted in Facebook groups, got a community, offered free advice, and then started charging. So same sort of thing.
Yeah. It says a lot about like finding the right communities to connect with when you're starting with something, and like being really clear about, okay, I've got this target that, I want to hit. Let me go right to the target instead of being like, well, I can just randomly post on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And it's funny, as I'm talking through this, I'm like, I should probably be doing this as someone who just launched a business.
Random post on Instagram. I'm like, why is nobody following me? Why is nobody? So I took a bit of time. I spent a little bit of cash and got 2 professionals to tell me what to do. So now I implement those things, and that's how I build. Like, I don't know everything. I certainly don't know everything. I feel like I've got good knowledge, but when it comes to marketing and doing those sorts of things, I just don't have it. So, the age-old thing is hire the people who are smarter than you to do the job that you can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to, I always think about this, is there's a reason why there are 8 billion of us on this planet. Like, we're not supposed to really do things alone. I very easily get into the mindset of, I have to figure it out on my own. I can do it on my own. Even if I don't know what to do, I'm like, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And the reality is maybe, but like, even if I could, am I even supposed to do it that way?
Yeah.
Like
100%.
You never know.
Yeah.
And the value of you being able to put the ego down and be like, okay, let me find some people who really know like what we're doing.
Yeah.
Super is really admirable, especially for like someone who is smart and like you and has built businesses and done this stuff before. I think that's really cool.
I think that comes down a lot to our society too, right? Like, especially over the last, 15, 20 years, entrepreneurship, the success stories are all about, I did it myself. I had this partner, I had little help, So people try to emulate that. And I'm 100% like you. If I wanted to do something, for example, I know my limitations when it comes to logical applications of software, and my biggest thing is coding. I grew up with computers. Like, I remember building computers when DOS 6.0 was around. Like, that's what I did. And back in the day, I was like, oh yeah, I should learn coding, and that would be like, it's the way of the future. But back then, coding was like C and C++ and all of these stupid hard languages. And honestly, I didn't get past like page 4 or 5 of the book because I just didn't understand it. But I persisted all through my life. I'm like, I should learn coding. And I kept going and going and going. And I finally came to a point very recently, and I'm 49, but very recently, where I'm just like, you don't have the brain for it. Don't be upset. Just don't worry about it. Like, it's cool. Yeah. If you want to learn it, take your time, but don't be upset that you're not picking it up like someone whose brain is structured for that kind of stuff. I'm a creative. Right. I've been a creative all my life. So I imagine stuff. Like, you want me to tell you a story on the spot, I could do it. I could make shit up and hey, no problem whatsoever. But like, to really settle down and do that kind of work, and that comes back to what you're saying, is like, I know that I should learn to do the marketing on my own. I should learn to do this on my own. And being an entrepreneur, owning a business, it's not just one thing. It's like 7 or 8 things, like finances, it's marketing, it's stock control, it's research, Pick the things you're good at, win the fights that you can win, and hand off other things to other people who are going to help you progress. That's kind of what I feel.
Yeah. There's the Rome wasn't built in a day, which, yeah, cool. But the one I like better is Rome was built by like 1 billion people.
100%.
Because like, even, I when I was younger, I really enjoyed history, and my teachers would fight you to the death in disagreement on that. But I really thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
And I remember learning about the Roman Empire and all this stuff, and about like the intricacies of society.
Yeah.
And just about how like there were so many moving parts. And yes, there was the emperors, and they had their, their power and prestige and all of that, and they made the big decisions. But like, at a societal level, there was so much cooperation and so much interplay between all the people to make that just brilliant system. Yeah. And Like I love it. It's such a great example of like we are so much better when we're cooperating.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I mean, you're not meant to do it. I mean, you said it earlier. You're not meant to do it on your own. We're not meant to be alone and do things on our own, right? Yeah, that's like props to the people who do, no problem, right? But I guess for the vast majority of us, it's like let's do it together and make something together, and move forward in like bigger steps as opposed to baby steps on your own. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of horses for courses. Who wants to do what? I'm kind of that mindset really, really now where I'll do what I know I can do and I'll hand off everything else. I'm even having struggles with just like getting this shop up and running. I'm just like, there's a couple of things that Facebook is forcing me to do, but I don't understand. And I'm just like, I just got to hand it off to somebody because all I'm doing is wasting my time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that energy is spent in better ways, like
Yes.
meditation.
Yes, 100%. Because once I'm finished with Facebook, I need to do a meditation to calm down.
Exactly. Um, so you, I feel like your spiritual journey and this clothing brand are very closely intertwined. Am I correct about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
And so how would you say, like, have they sort of evolved together? Has there been like your meditation and your spiritual practice, has that been something that's pushed the business forward? Has it been like the business has kind of like taken your practice and dragged it along with you? Like, how has that experience been with those two things kind of operating together?
It's an interesting question. So to keep it brief, I went through a divorce last year, which actually kicked off my spiritual journey. I'd been involved in meditation all my life. Like, I loved it. I wanted to understand how the brain worked. I had some issues with memory all my life. And I was like, how do I fix it? Meditation, do this, do that. So I was like learning a lot along the way. When my spiritual awakening, which is, I guess, I've talked to a couple of friends and they're like, yeah, that's kind of what we would call it, your spiritual awakening, because I was more involved in, I want to be a better person. And I wasn't the self-help books. It was like going inside and working out just the things that you're not happy with yourself, things that you want to do better. How can you change and all that sort of stuff? And it started February last year, so it was way before the clothing line when on my Facebook feed a continual ad for Joe Dispenza kept coming up,
Hmm. Yeah.
for Rewired. And I just knocked it away and knocked it away. And finally, the ad that came up that played the trailer was like rewiring your mind, like changing your mind, which is what piqued my interest. I'm like, all right, so I'll watch it. So I ended up getting Gaia for the month and watched the whole series. And I took notes, like I furious notes. I got like 40, 50 pages of notes, which I've never read again. And that's another problem I have. I'll take notes, but I forget to go back and go over and then wonder why I can't remember anything. But that really started it. And then someone was like, oh, wow. So I looked at his stuff on YouTube. And then the next step was my first week-long meditation retreat. And that was literally a week, maybe 6 days before I moved back to Australia in July last year.
Wow.
And then what happened was when I went to Cancun, which was another one, I'm like, these things are very closely related. I was the kind of person who didn't express or feel love. However, I was the kind of person that was the reliable one. If you needed to move your house, just call me. I'm there. I'm like the person who would always do something for someone else. So I was a very giving person, but I wasn't very giving to myself. And so during that first retreat, I kind of learned a fair bit. I didn't feel like I had an amazing retreat because I was so new to his meditations and so new. And all of these people around me are screaming and yelling and having these mystical experiences. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And what happened was when I got home, I kicked into gear and I didn't miss a day. I think I missed maybe 3 days in total for the next 2 months, meditating at least once a day. I'm like, all right, so this is cool. And I didn't, my emotional state at the time was really quite low. I was really depressed. And the meditations weren't helping at all. I was like, this is ridiculous. So I ended up stopping for a little bit and then just doing them randomly. And
Hmm.
in the end, I'm like, I need a change because I'm going to do something that is just not conducive to a healthy life. So I booked the Cancun one, and that retreat changed me a lot. Like I think, and he talks about people talk about having a bad meditation, and Dr. Joe says there's never a bad meditation. At the end of the first retreat, I was like, yeah, I had lots of bad meditations. But at the end of Cancun, I think I had one average meditation. The rest of them, I felt like I was deeper, I was connected. And again, no mystical experience, nothing like that. Um, I don't feel energy yet. I'm still working on that. But, however, I felt like I was more in tune with the meditation. I was more in tune with the process. And then the clothing line came around and I was like, all I want to do, I just want to be happy. I want to feel love. I want to give love. Or it was just like a real epiphany for me at Cancun. And I met some amazing people there again. And it's like, why can't the rest of the world be just happy? Just get along. And
Yeah.
then that came up with the apparel business. We're like, all right, it's a small start, but what if I could put a smile on someone's face, one person at a time, one t-shirt at a time? And that's why we'll come back to your earlier question is why clothing? I feel like it's the simplest way to get any kind of message across with the least amount of work. You design something that looks cool. It touches someone because of what the words say. Anything like that. Like a friend of ours is like, her thing is butterflies. I'm like, how many people like butterflies? All right, let's just make one shirt that has butterflies. One person's appreciation of that animal, well, that could be 1,000 people's. And then all of a sudden, I've gone from 1 to 1,000, 1,000x'd my goal with one shirt. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it's for me, they go hand in hand now because I think of things that are going to make me happy. And if they make me happy, I feel like the broader population of our community makes them happy as well. And so that's kind of where they come in together for raising vibrations and keeping people in that loving sort of happy state.
Yeah. It's like that look good, feel good, except like to the max on like a totally different
100%.
level than
Yep.
than than what that statement seems. And I do think that there's something really beautiful about like the intention behind what you're doing, and especially because just kind of like teasing this out in my brain right now, thinking about like clothes actually touch people's skin. So like when you say like I want to touch people's lives, you actually are, by virtue of you're putting out the good intention, you're using fabrics and designs and things that have high vibrations and connecting them with words and statements that resonate with people, and that intention, like they're wearing that out in the world and sharing that with even more people every time they wear it. And clothing and fashion and these things they've really connected us a lot throughout human history. If you look back at like style trends and everything from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, especially more so in modern society. I think it's very powerful, this idea of like look good, feel good, and taking that to just a whole nother level, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think you said it, like the thought process is there, but and that simplicity of that sentence, look good, feel good, it's like exponentially more important now that you think of what we're trying to do with that material that is already at a higher vibration. And like you said, it touches your skin. Like that's it's the antithesis of change is like, how do you change it? You change it from the inside. And how do you get to the inside? Well, just feel good on the outside. And something that touches your skin just gives you that little jolt of feeling good or feeling happy, then it kickstarts that domino effect of change along the line. Bad day, bad thoughts, that sort of thing. Just something little like that can help. It's the same as like having morning routines, morning habits, just little things that you might not feel good doing it. And I did it before the episode. I went to the beach and had my coffee and I did my morning sunshine, but I didn't go for a swim. but I came home and I had my cold shower. It's like a minute and a
Mm-hmm.
half. That's all I need. And it didn't feel good at the time, but I feel great now. It's like even just little things like I know that this is good for me. It might be a little uncomfortable, not wearing a shirt, but just that sort of thing. But the process of knowing that something's going to help you out helps change that thought process.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's like, out of all the shirts, like if you are having a shitty day, out of all the shirts in your closet, that's the one you're
Yeah.
like, you go to that one. You're like, this is something that I can do. Maybe it's all in my head, but maybe I do actually feel a difference
Yeah.
it makes it maybe a little easier I go put that shirt on and it's maybe a little easier to go meditate as
Yeah.
opposed to being like, well, shit, I gotta meditate.
Gotta meditate.
Which you might
And
be, which
I've
you might be doing
really,
anyways.
no, that's 100% true. But I've really tried to, and it came up just recently at Dallas, and I thank her for it. But I sat down with a friend, um, and we are just talking. And obviously, when you're married, 8 years in your life, that's a big chunk of your life. And I'm an older guy, like so from 41 to 49, I was married, and like that's later in life. And when I was leaving to say goodbye, she's like, you know that there was like not one time you didn't say anything like about your ex-wife. It was like my ex-wife this, my ex this, and she's like, if you want to change, if you want to be a different person, you got to leave that person behind. And at the time, I'm just like, but she asked me questions that were literally specifically about that time. So
Hmm.
how do I get around that? And another friend of mine said two things. She's like, one thing is that you still can remember about what happened and all of that sort of stuff, but you don't necessarily need to, like, you don't need to forget about it, but just word it a little differently so that you don't necessarily keep bringing up those negative emotions. And I went on a tangent, but it's kind of the same as when so we talk about music as well. If I'm in a crappy mood, I know that there's at least 4 or 5 songs that'll put me in a different mood instantly, like
Hmm.
instantly. And there's two options there. Do I go to those songs or do I feel crappy? What if that same change in perception or perspective happened with a shirt or a hoodie or a pair of pants? I feel shitty. I look in my closet. That shirt makes me feel great. That shirt makes me feel better than I do now, which is marginal, like 1%, like marginally better. I put it on. Yeah, I feel good. Maybe I will meditate. And it's not like I need to meditate. You know what? Right now, I actually want to. I want to do this. I want to be able to move forward in life and change those things. So I think that the verbiage we use is important. And you said it, I need to. Like, yeah, well, what if that little change makes us change our thought process and go, yeah, I really want to do that now because I just want to feel good. I want to make that change of state. And that's
Right.
kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and the meditation, at the end of the day, like we don't meditate to meditate. Like, yeah, it is fun to go into nothing sometimes and quiet the brain and everything. But when we all sit down and do it, we're doing it to change.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
there's the intention of what it is, and that's always so important for me. Is when I'm doing things, thinking about like what's my intention here? Why am I really doing this?
Yep.
Um, and I think like having that visual reminder in the form of the shirt, it's like that why. Maybe it doesn't say this is my why, but like
Yep.
seeing the one of the stock shirt examples. What this is my favorite one is the meditation man with the eight chakras.
Yep.
Chakras. I had someone comment on my Instagram saying that I needed to say it different. Chakras. Uh, so the meditation man with the eight chakras. And, for me, like, I see that, I'm like, okay, there's my why. Like, I remember why
Yep.
I'm doing this. I'm doing this to change. If I'm going to sit down and do the blessings of the energy centers meditation, I'm doing it to connect to these areas of my
Yep.
body, to give it energy, to raise their frequency and vibration.
Yep.
And I think it's like those visual cues are so important. And that's why I love the idea of clothing, because like you said, there's nothing really like what you're doing.
Yeah. And we did the research. We looked around, and there is one or two companies, but they don't. I mean, they were hard to find. It wasn't super easy to find. And I think that like the visual cue, you said it again, the visual cue is important. And for me, as someone who knows that their memory is not as great and they need to have those cues and points like calendars, to-do lists, those sorts of things. Like I get overwhelmed sometimes when I have 5 to-do lists, but you got to have those cues, because I could go through a day where I wanted to achieve 6 things, and if I didn't write them down, I would forget what I wanted to achieve. And at the end of the day, I was like, shit, I wanted to do this, 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 and this, So like, you're 100% right. Like just that little visual cue, something to remind you, something to be like, yeah, that's going to help. I think is a really good way to look at it.
So I want to circle back to something you said that reminded me of something that I read today, and it was about routines. And basically, it was, you can't control a lot of what happens during your day, but you can control the first little bit of time right after you get out of bed and the last little bit of time before you get back in bed. And you were talking about your morning routine. So, like, have you found things that have really resonated and helped you? You mentioned the getting to the beach, the sunshine, the cold shower, or swim. Have those been things that you've really felt a difference in your state of being since incorporating?
Yes. If I don't do them in the morning, I feel a little flat, and it's the slightest thing. It's like the cold showers. I mean, again, all of these things, like I follow Andrew Huberman, and he has a lot of these protocols, and I try to take the ones that are going to be best for me. Prior to going to Dallas this past week, I really focused on trying to get out of bed 5:30 to do, everything, and I couldn't do it. I was in bed till 7 o'clock every morning, and I just didn't understand what was going on. So what happened after Dallas, and again, I've only been home a week, but what happened after Dallas is I started sleeping earlier. So I'm usually a 10:30 guy, because I think that I'm the kind of person who can run on 6 hours. And it seems like that's not true right now. It seems like I'm going through so many changes, so many things are happening that I need 8 hours. So I've been in bed at like 8 or 9 o'clock, and I have been waking up 10 minutes prior to my alarm. So I get my 8 hours, and I got, just because you told me to, I got my Whoop. I'm on a trial.
Nice.
All
right.
But my alarm is set for 6 a.m. And here in Australia, it's winter. So the sun's not out till 6:15, 6:30. But honestly, the last 5 days in a row, I've been out of bed at 10 to 6. And I'm like, all right, I don't need to force myself out. I'm up. Then my alarms go off. And then I'm like, right, so it's still dark. What do I want to do? The goal is, within 30 minutes of waking up, get sunshine in your eyes. And the reason for that is it helps set your circadian rhythm. So I'm like, all right, I'll go and do that. So I live 7 minutes from the beach. I go down the beach, it's still dark. And where I'm lucky is that the sun comes up over the rocks, and I can look directly at it without hurting my eyes for that 3 to 5 minute period. And I've already done that. I mean, I'm up at 6. Prior, it was like, yeah, get up at 5, meditate. And it's like, if I'm not that kind of person, stop beating yourself up. So what I'll do is I'll go to the beach. I'll have my coffee. If it's a sunny day, I'll probably get a bit of exercise in, do like a 15-minute walk. And then I've achieved like 3 things in the morning without doing anything. If I take my boardies down, I'll go for a swim. And then I get 4 things in. So I get my cold plunge, which is, the thing is, they're really short things, right? Sunshine in your eyes, maximum 5 minutes. That's all it needs to have the effect that he talks about. Cold plunge, 11 minutes a week. So that's like a minute and a half a day. By the time you get into the water at the beach and come out again, you've done your minute and a half. So that tiny little bit of pain, it's not a big deal, It's not like he's going to say, and you see the polar people, they go and do their 5 or 10 minutes in the icebergs. More power to them, that's cool. But if I only need the minimum effective dose, if all I need is a minute and a half, I'm down. I'll do it. Yeah. And then within the first hour of the day, I've done everything. And I get back home and I feel good. I just feel good. And And maybe it's because I feel good because I know I've done those 3 or 4 things, or maybe it's because I feel good because they're having a physiological change or an emotional
Right.
change. I don't care what the reason is, I feel good.
Yeah.
So if I
I
don't
was
do it, then yeah, I don't feel good.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. I was like, at the end of the day, I wonder if it even matters what's driving the change because like you said, it could be the fact that you're just like, "Oh my God, I did 3 or 4 things that I wanted to do and it's like in the first hour of my day and I have my whole
Yeah.
day ahead of me to carry this momentum forward."
Yeah.
Or you're also these things are you're doing them to improve your health and they are things that are research backed and have been shown to be good for us as humans.
Yeah.
And I think I love the way you said that because for a lot of people, myself included, like I can get lost in the weeds of like, why am I doing this, like what's causing the change,
Yes.
where you kind of take that emotion out of it and you're just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I feel good doing this. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep doing it because it's making me feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it's such an emotionless way to approach these things, which I think for a lot of people can be hard because,
Yeah.
you're tying your self-worth to the actions that you're doing when,
Yes.
I don't know if we need to do that.
No, no, we don't. You're 100% right. And I think that that was one of the biggest problems I was getting down on myself on last year, especially, but even earlier this year, is that like, you want to be a better person, you want to do these things, and you read the books and they're like, all right, so to be a better person, you do these things. And you're right, start off small, that's fine. So my small was wake up at 5:30 and meditate. That was just too much for me. I hated meditating then. I'm just like, it's not doing anything for me. I'm not feeling good. And then that just like catapults the rest of the day into a negativity. Whereas
Yep.
if it's as simple as getting out of bed, like I even got to a point where one of the habits that I was trying to do was get up at between 5:30 and 6, walk to the front door and turn the light on. That was it. That was the goal. I couldn't even
Hmm.
do that. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is terrible. This is ridiculous. And I think that, and we can talk about this later, but I think that in this past 3 weeks, because you obviously know this, but the listeners don't, I went on a trip to Peru on my own for 3 weeks. The amount of emotional healing that I feel like I've received over these last 3 weeks has helped to make those little morning things that I'm doing, like you said, emotionless. Just do them. Just get out of bed and do them. And
Yeah.
those help to bring the rest of the day into alignment of productivity. I still
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to get into the beach at 6 o'clock in the freaking morning. And funnily enough, beach water is warmer right now than my cold shower. So if I
Oh, there
really
you
wanted a
go.
cold one, I should just stay in the shower. However,
Hmm.
it's just that connection with the earth. Like the beach is my happy place. On a bad day, I'll go to the beach and I'll just sit there and I'll be fine. So that's
Yeah.
like everyone's got their spot, and that the beach has always been mine.
So I definitely want to get into your adventures in Peru. But I,
Yeah,
I think one thing that I really took away from what you said, and it's something that I think about a lot, is it's not that you have to change the habits to change yourself. You change yourself to change the habits.
yeah,
Because you were like, I'm doing so I'm gonna like, I guess I'm gonna psychoanalyze you here a little bit.
that's fine.
So before you went to Peru and you were trying to implement these habits, you're trying to get up at 5:30, trying to do the, I got to get up at 5:30 to do the meditation to be the good person or to get the
Yeah,
health benefits or whatever. You're like,
yep,
as opposed to you go, you have this journey in Peru, you do the ayahuasca, you go to the Dallas, you do all this healing on yourself, you change
yep,
you, and then the habits that you want to have, like you've become that person that you were trying to
yes,
do the habits to be. And
yep,
so then it's like, oh no shit, these are easy. Like you already are that person who does the habits. You change yourself when you healed. Um,
yep,
so yeah, please, yeah, tell us a little more about the experience in Peru. I mean, I when we met in Dallas, you told me a bit about it, but like there's some
yeah,
stuff about the way kind of like hiking through the mountains and
Yeah.
the way the whole ritual and everything was set up it was so powerful. So, I
Yeah.
would love anything you could give
So
on that.
this has been honestly, like, again, I said I'm 49. This has been at least 25 years in the making. 25 years ago, when I was like looking at traveling and traveling around, Machu Picchu was on my list, like in the top three. Pyramids, Machu Picchu, and then it was actually like the Great Wall, sort of Great Wall, terracotta warriors, stuff around China. Ended up doing the Great Wall with my dad when I was younger, but never got to South America. So this year, being the impulsive person that I am, decided that I'm going to Dallas AFU because I'd never been to an AFU. So I booked Dallas, and then I'm like, I'm in the area, which I'm really not, but I'm in the area. So like Machu Picchu is closer to Dallas than it is to Australia. So that's my reasoning. So I'm like, I'm in the area. Why don't I do a trip to Peru? So I spoke to a mate of mine who'd done Machu Picchu before. He told me about a tour he did, and I started doing some research. And what happened was the dates that I wanted to do, because originally I was going to be Dallas and then Peru, but the dates didn't line up. So there's a trek that you can do where you walk from the start, Ollantaytambo, I think it is, to Machu Picchu, which is like, you can do it in two ways. You can do it in 4 days, you can do it in five. But the dates didn't line up. So I'm like, all right, I'll do Peru first. So I went and got my booking all set up. And then I had 6 days between the end of my trip in Machu Picchu and the Dallas AFU. I'm like, what do I do? And my mate's like, you're going to do ayahuasca. And I was like, nah, I wasn't going to do it. And he's like, I did my first one in Peru. And I'm like, all right. So he again showed me, it's the same guy. He showed me and he's done 20 ceremonies. And he showed me the place that he did
Wow.
it at. And the dates didn't line up again. Like, shit. So I was like, theirs was a 7 day one, which started on my last day in Machu Picchu, which I could have kind of finagled and got around it, but then it was like 7 days, which then led into Dallas. So it wouldn't work. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So I did some research and found one that is actually the only ceremonial place in Peru that is medically licensed to do ayahuasca. And the way that they run their ceremonies is you can't do it without a medical intake form. You need to have an EKG of your heart to make sure that your heart's fine. And then you do an on-site medical with the doctor. Once you pass all three, so like you could get your doctor to sign off on the form and they're like, yep, you can come in, and then get there and they do an EKG and they're like, no, you're not. They'll get your money back and they'll send you on your way. So
Wow.
it's really quite in depth in how they do their medical stuff, which is the reason I chose it. And the date's fixed. The date's worked. So I set off to Peru around I think it was 5th of April. And the whole idea was walk the Inca Trail, experience as much as I can along the way, and then arrive in Machu Picchu. And it's been the most rewarding effort of something that I've done in my life. Like, I get that there's people who just like either only want to see Machu Picchu or can only physically jump on a train and get there. Each to their own, whatever it is. I've got a knee injury that is pretty difficult to do steps and walk around and stuff. But in the end, I'm just like, screw it, I'm just going to do it. So I picked the trail and then, yeah, just met up. There was 7 people in our group. And what happens is you have a porter, and we had a group of porters. There was 16 porters, and these people are insane, like insane. They're only allowed to carry 25 kilos per porter. That's why we had 16. Your stuff, you can give them 4 kilos maximum because they also carry your sleeping bag, your tent, and like an air mattress. So you give them 4 kilos maximum. And then they carry all of the tents, all of the cooking, food for 4.5 days for 7 people, plus food for porters. They carry the tables, the chairs. They even carry a portable toilet. It's insane what they carry. And so, yeah, then you just go off on your way and walk. So we had a guide and he just explained everything along the trail. And just to experience, it's hard to describe unless you've done it and really can visualize because you've seen what they do. If you go to Rome, and Rome now was built kind of on the ruins of old Rome and the old Roman Empire, and you see stairs going down, right? This is literally what they've got in the jungle. There is
Wow.
paths made of stone, cobblestone, and stairs that, while they get repaired, they do in February they close the whole trail down and they do repairs on everything. But to look at it and go, right, this has been around for thousands of years and is still here. So it was really humbling to walk along this trail. You get to a height of 4,200 meters, which is super high, highest I've ever been. And then, yeah, it's just along this trail. You see this. It's funny because I showed my parents these pictures. I had 479 odd photos, and I want to say at least
Wow.
200 of them are of mountains, and probably 50 to
Mm-hmm.
70 of them are duplicates. But the thing is, you look at a mountain, and at 4,000 meters, the change in mist and viewing of that mountain in 10 minutes is insane. You could take 10 pictures and go, that's not the same mountain because it just looks different. So I have a lot of those pictures,
Wow.
and it's just gorgeous. Like, I've never seen just scenery like this. So
Mm-hmm.
we walked for a couple of days. So we ended up doing all of our walking. We did our high point and then we did our low point. Had a great time. On the second day, though, um, approaching the summit of 4,200 meters, which is the highest point in the trek, it started raining about an hour and a half in left to the summit. So me being me, I was like, all right, I'll be fine. It was only light. So I'll give it a bit of time because it'll stop. 40 minutes later, it hadn't stopped, and I decided that I'd put my poncho on. So by that time, I was already drenched, and I still had an hour to the summit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, poncho will work. Poncho was not great at all. Got to the summit, drenched, like absolutely drenched, and then decided to take out my like fully 100% waterproof raincoat and put that on just so that I didn't get any more wet. So I did that, then put my poncho on, and then I was essentially dry. And then it was a 2 hour trek downhill, which is like super steep. So I was taking it super slow, but in the end made it down. But the reward of going through and just seeing, like, Incas are 4 feet tall, right? They're not tall people. It's like the stairs were half their height. How did they walk up and down these stairs? And I'm 5'11", and I'm struggling because they're like,
Yeah.
I felt like the steps were like a foot high in some places. But it was humbling. It was humbling to see how these people had done what they'd done.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we did that for 3 days, and on the fourth day is when you finally arrive at Machu Picchu, and you arrive via Machu Picchu Mountain, and you get to the Sun Gate.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked through, and the first like sight that you see Machu Picchu, the first thing I said was like, "Holy shit balls!" And there was an American lady in front of me, and she's like, "Most appropriate thing I've ever heard." And
That's
you're just standing there in
fantastic.
awe. It's insane. Like, how does this happen? So we ended up coming down and did our little walk, and there's what they call the hero shot, where you see a lot of the pictures of Machu Picchu is from the entry at the Sun Gate, and you're looking down over Machu Picchu. They have a viewing platform. So we've got our pictures there. And the thing is, if you look over the back, there's another mountain that's called Huayna Picchu, and it's up like higher than the Sun Gate. I think it's like 3,000. I want to say 3,000 meters or 2,800 meters, but it gives you a different perspective of what Machu Picchu looks like. So I was like, all right, I'll climb that. So the next day, around 11 o'clock, I climbed. It was about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 climb up. The steps were almost vertical in some spots, and they have this metal like railing, which is high tensity railing pretty much all the way along. So I'm holding this railing up. But when you get to the top of this mountain and look back at Machu Picchu, I feel like that's a better representation of what it looks like, because when you're from the Sun Gate, there's certain parts of the front of the mountain on agriculture that you can't see just because of the way that it's like situated. But when you go to the other mountain and look back, it's like all there. And it's like, how the hell did these people make this in the mountain? And the mountain is bedrock. Like, for the most part, is bedrock. It's rock. and they just built this city. It's like it's inspiring. It's like it's humbling and awe-inspiring. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it
My
was like
God.
25-year dream finally come true. And like I said, I've got 470 odd pictures, beautiful pictures too. And like trying to build like a coffee table book, you'd be like, I want 60% of those pictures in there, but there's too many.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just too many, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was the experience in Peru for that part.
That's fantastic. I love what you said about the awe of it all. I think like it ties into it so well. It ties so well into what we do with meditation. We're
Yeah,
trying like as we go into these super deep states and everything, like you're really trying to experience awe. You're trying to experience unknown.
yeah.
Like a mystical experience is just it's like it really is just awe.
I mean,
And I think it's, it's so wonderful that we do have things in the physical world that we can go to experience
yeah,
awe
yep,
because, you see it and it's just like, oh my God. Like, and your mind, you can't even wrap your mind around it. Like
no,
how these people did this, like how perfectly the evolution of the earth happened to make these mountains as beautiful as they are.
yeah.
There's
And I
you
think
can't
something
like
that no, keep going.
no, I was just saying you can't wrap your mind around that. And
No,
it's so cool that you can't.
and no, you're 100% right. Because if you look at it today, you walk through Machu Picchu, right? The two biggest things that stand out are the walls. They call one wall a rustic wall, and they call one wall an Inca wall. The rustic wall is just for the regular walls around the houses, regular walls around the exterior of the city, right? Then they talk about an Inca wall. And if you look at any documentary and they show you these stones are perfectly sanded and puzzled together. So there'll be stones that are a rectangle, but at the corner they have a lip, and then that lip fits onto the next one. So that puzzle is
Mm,
like interlocked together. And if you think about, I think it was even pre-Incan, it was like I've been watching a lot of Gaia, so there's stuff on there that people are like, no, that's true. What are you talking about? Like they talk a lot about Atlantis, but they also talk a lot about other places like Mu and this period of the Younger and the Older Dryas, where there were civilizations that were obliterated in the space of like 1,000 years, whereas all of our other sort of catastrophic events took, 10, 15,000 years. This one was intense and there was like a lot of stuff lost. But just little things like a wall that has the stones cut out with a eye key, and then all of a sudden that's how they lock stuff together. So this Inca wall is similar, and it's just this perfectly polished stone fit together. And it was for the kings and the royals and the higher ups and that sort of stuff. And you walk through it, and it's specifically placed. There's the king's bedroom, and there's this wall, and they're perfectly cambered at a certain degree. And if I'm not mistaken, the Inca walls are not even mortared together. The Inca walls are just placed
oh
and
my God.
structurally sound. Um, blows my mind. And then even just when they put doors, so they put doors on some of these places, they'll have one rock, and that rock has a hole carved out on the inside of it. It's like a handle where it was a hinge for this door, and you put your hand inside it, and it's smooth. It's just like there's no machine. Like, I mean, there's probably machinery that could do that today, but there's no way that we could replicate what they've done. No one can work it out without a crane.
Yeah.
And even the cranes are not even going to be strong enough to hold half the stuff that these guys have done. It's just beyond belief. And it fascinates me. Fascinates me.
Yeah. And it definitely makes you think like what like this ancient wisdom that's, it seemingly all around us. It's just like you can either go to Peru and I'm sure, anywhere you go, you can find things about it. Like what, we always talk about evolution, how have we
Yeah.
evolved? And it's funny, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, how have we devolved? Like in which ways have we sort of lost that
Yes.
magic? Not in like a cynical way, but more so it's like, this is the example I'm going to use. So when you make a decision, you are
Yep.
making the decision not to make any other decision.
Yeah.
And so it's like, as we've of like, evolution is really just a bunch of decisions that we've made over and over and over again that have
Yeah.
brought us along a certain path.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the question of like, okay, we have evolved, we've moved forward, but what have we left things behind that are also really important? And
Yeah.
I think, going to these wonders of the world is a really good example of, answering that question of like, yeah, maybe we have left some stuff behind. And then not to be like, wow, we're shit, we suck as humans. It's more like,
Yeah.
okay, let's get it back. Let's
How do we get
combine.
it back? Yes.
Yeah, how do we get it back? How do we take that ancient wisdom and blend it with all the amazing things that we've done with technology and society and what we have now to make
Yeah.
it even better? Like,
No, I agree,
that's,
100%.
yeah.
I think that's a big thing too, because like something that I've noticed, and maybe it's like, I guess it's the old adage as well, right? I want to buy a blue car, then everyone's got a blue car. For me, when it comes to this spiritual stuff, again, I've always been really interested in Eastern culture, always about energy work, like all that sort of stuff, but never really got into it until this most recent time. But I also see more people are getting involved, and maybe they were already involved, like the masses were already involved, and I didn't see it because I wasn't involved. But I see so much more of people pulling back from this societal grind and bringing it back to being like whole as a person, and understanding and thinking that like life is not all about 80, 90 hour weeks. It's about, for me personally, I think I lost the luster for expensive cars and super expensive houses quite a while ago. Even though I was in construction for a while, for like 6 years, and I made beautiful homes, I built beautiful homes. I'm like, yeah, this would be nice. But I've had one, and I think I lost this. I want to say I lost this for a good 5 or 6 years. But I had one motto in life that I had from when I was 18. So from pretty young, like straight out of school, I'm just like, I don't care. If I die at 80 years old with zero regrets and no money, I'll have lived a good life.
Mhm.
That's how I feel. And I lost that. And I feel like just slowly with this last year and a half of change, that's coming back. And that's what prompted the Peru trip. Why
Mhm.
would I not do it? What
Yeah.
and we talked about this in Dallas. We talked about this, and our friend Avery here had on the cast would be like, I would be freaking out. I don't have a problem with debt. I don't have a problem with it. Yes, it's not great, but if I'm going to miss out on an experience for 6 months of fixing it down the road, I won't do it. I'll be like, that's got to happen now. I'll work the rest out later. And I guess that's opening up to the unknown as well, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
however it happens, that's going to happen, and I'm going to work it out later.
Yeah, it's, and I think it always goes back like doing things in alignment. Like if the experience is something that's in alignment with you and you're like, wow, I've been presented with this opportunity. Yeah, it'll put me in a little bit of debt. I feel this
Yeah.
in my soul.
Yes.
It's like, yeah. But I think there's a big difference between that and then trying to do something for an experience, looking for a feeling. That's when things get really weird, because it's like, if you're like, my soul is speaking to me to tell me to go to Peru, then you're like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like, this is an
Yeah.
alignment. But if you're like, well, this is something that someone's told me to do, and maybe I should do this to put it on my social media, or, whatever.
Exactly. Yes.
Whatever
Yeah.
the motivations could be to do something, and then you take it on, and it's the regret of doing something for the quote unquote impure reasons, because I can't think of a better word off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That's when that sort of I'll figure it out gets weird, because it's been poisoned with those negative emotions of
Yeah.
shit. Maybe that wasn't in alignment. I don't really feel good about it, and now I'm dealing with
Yeah.
the repercussions of doing something that was technically financially irresponsible and also
Yeah.
wasn't in alignment with my soul. So you've taken damage on two fronts, and it's
Yeah.
just really like a pit of suck, instead of like you said, being like, holy shit, this, I need to do this, like I'm
Yeah.
being drawn here, I'll figure it out. And then you do figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that that's a really good way of putting it. It's kind of like that notoriety. And I hate social media. I'm, again, showing my age. I'm like similar to the OG Facebook crew, right? Like, so Facebook's only for us old people now because back in the day it was like MySpace and then Facebook, and MySpace got kicked out because it wasn't as fun. And so back in the day, I was a troll. I was one of those people who would like fight with people on Facebook. I was one of those people who needed to get the likes and all that sort of stuff. And I lost that. I lost that need for all that sort of stuff a little while ago. And I never had Instagram. I'm like, why would I have something that doesn't give me any value chasing the notoriety of someone else? And then that's when influencers started coming out, and like that's how they made the money. And now it's a big deal, like with that and YouTube and stuff like that. The only reason I've got an Instagram account is for the business. And I know myself, I get stuck in scrolling, and like for me a big thing is music. I love watching just unknown people sing beautiful songs or just listening to music, that sort of thing. And that's what gets me. And there's this one guy, I could watch him all day. He's from Nashville, his name's Will. And he goes up to pretty girls and just says, "Hey, can I sit down and sing you a song?" And he just sits and sings. And I don't know how he does it, but he knows all the songs. A chick just come out and said, "Yeah, I want you to play, I like this guy," and that's what I'm listening to. "Oh yeah, I know that one," and just starts playing and singing. And then these girls, half the girls that can sing, have these gorgeous voices. So I get really drawn into scrolling on that sort of stuff, which is another reason I don't like Instagram, because I know I get sucked in. But yeah, so for me, that draw of the soul to bring you to a place outside of doing it for those, and I feel like it's a selfish reason. I want people to see me doing this, and it's not to make them feel bad, but it's that I can make myself feel good because I have the ability to do that. I haven't posted any of my pictures on Facebook. I think I put one on Instagram just for the business. With something that I do on Facebook, which I have done all my life, is I'll put a picture of a beer on the airport that I'm leaving from Australia to a new place or back. That's the only thing I'll do. But it's been a tradition. Everywhere I've gone, I've taken a picture at an airport of a beer, and I thought that's was fun.
Awesome.
That's about it.
Yeah, that is fun. We talked a little bit about the intention behind like the clothing and all that stuff, and it really circles around. At least in my experience, my life experience, that's like that magic ingredient. Is intention, because I can do the same thing the exact same way with two different intentions, and it is two fucking different things every single time.
I agree 100%. I think it also comes back to what you're saying is when you're meditating, if you're doing it to change, your intention is to change as opposed to something else, as opposed to, I think you said it was to create the habit of meditating, which I know will be good for me. It's the wrong thought process. I'm meditating so that I can change. Then all of a sudden, and it didn't occur to me until you sort of brought it up, that that's what's happened, but it makes a lot of sense, is that I'm meditating to change. I'm doing these things to change, to be a better person. Then all of a sudden, those habits are easy because you're that person. And that is like the central theme of what we do when we meditate. We bring that person to us that is out there somewhere and is not here right now, but we bring that person to us, and then all of a sudden, those things that used to be difficult are just done. They're just part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, you change the box.
Yeah,
change
exactly.
that box.
Exactly.
That's another Dr. Joe reference. I'm not gonna explain that one. Okay. No. Exactly. I mean, I feel like that's most of the people who listen to this anyways.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple times, and we've talked about this before, like how important music is in your life, and it's something that is really, really important to me. Can you take me through a little bit about just like how it sort of influenced your being, even from like a young age until now? Like, has the way music has influenced you changed? Has it always been kind of this rock for you? What's that experience been like?
So when I was in school, Kenny G was big. Sin Elmo's Fire was around. And then there was just that one theme in St. Elmo's Fire that the saxophone played. And it was like, that's my instrument. I have to play that instrument. So I actually started at a clarinet because the saxophone wasn't available in the school band. So I played clarinet for 6 months, but it was like a stepping stone because it's similar in the finger movements just
Hmm.
outside of the different sides of the instrument, right? You had to use the reed to blow the wind into it, so it was all very similar. And then the saxophone came available, and I started playing it. Then I bought my own saxophone. Um, I have my own limiting issue where and I've really looked back about this, and I'm trying to change this habit. It's a habit. I find that I quit things way too soon or often than I should. And I was playing saxophone in a school band, and I had my own saxophone. I was learning. I was playing. I was doing all right. And I always felt that when I was playing music, I felt good, but I was not progressing as fast as I wanted to. And at the time, I was traveling, and it was a silly thing to do, but I had my saxophone with me. I was traveling and ran out of money. I ended up selling it because I had no money. So
Hmm.
that was the end of my saxophone career. And as much as I love the instrument, I never got back into it at home. But in my early teens, late teens, growing up with like God, NWA, hip hop, all of that sort of stuff, and then growing up in the 80s and 90s, the Bon Jovi, the Poison, all of the big bands. Like I think I lived in a pretty good era at an age where a lot of the music was just brilliant, like so good. And I loved it, but I never did anything with it. I never really played music until I sort of turned 19, 20, and I was in hospitality, and I did as a bartender, and I worked in hospitality for a good 10 or 15 years and made my way through. But I was working at this one place and met the DJ there, and we became really good friends. I ended up DJing music, and at that time it was dance music. Um, Loved my dance music. I was really into my funky dance music. It was just like the beat, the groove, everything was like, just doesn't matter what happened, just made your body move, always made you feel good. Didn't matter what happened. You could find a really shitty day and put on one of a dozen songs, and all of a sudden you're sort of like feeling real good again. So I DJ'd for about 3 years and played at a couple of clubs, which was super fun. And then sort of got out of it again and was like, just let it go. And it's always been, I've always listened to it, always loved it, always liked listening to new music. And then as I got older, prior to 2015, I started teaching myself guitar, and I ended up playing for about 2 or 3 years. And I got okay, I got pretty decent. But then moved to America, took my guitar with me, and then again just let it go. And it's like I seem to have this habit of getting somewhere and then just stopping. So
Used to
so
used to have the habit.
used to have the habit. I used to have because I don't do that anymore. I played that, and then when I got back home last year, I'm just like, I'm gonna do this and not stop. It doesn't matter what happens. And I've had some real hard times these last couple of months because there's definitely things that I'm unable to play and get frustrated, but I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop. Um, and so something else that
Yes.
happened at so I was obviously at Denver before I met you, but Denver last year, I was in like that real dark place, and I went there, and then all of a sudden everybody dancing at these retreats before Dr. Joe comes back out. And I was just this dude in the because I didn't know anybody. I had my good friends, but I didn't know anybody. And I was still super like no confidence. So I was just like, in my chair. It's like, this is fun. This is fun.
Hmm.
And then when I got to Cancun, I made a promise to myself that I would not miss a dance party. And I was up there at the front line every single time. And what happened was Black Eyed Peas came on. And just
Hmm.
knowing how these people jump and dance, I decided to film it. So I started it from the start. I recorded me and my friends singing and whatever. And then as soon as the beat dropped and everyone started jumping, I forgot about recording anybody specifically and just started like throwing my hands up. So my videos, as you well know, are a combination of seeing people and not seeing people and just bouncing around.
I've
And
I've
just that
seen this
quick one.
video, and it it goes from oh it's oh nice, like everybody's dancing, and then it's like, oh, Brett's having a seizure. Like that's that's what it looks like in one in 2 seconds. It's a very
Yep,
drastic
yep.
change, but it's so funny.
It's so
Um,
fun. And it's just like one of those things now. I'm just like, if I feel down, I'll watch it. I'm just like, yeah, that makes me feel good. And music has
mhm.
that effect on me that I just I can't not have a day without music. I need to listen to something. And as I said, when I got home, I'm like, I need to do something with music. So I picked piano and guitar back up. I went to singing lessons for a while. Those are a lot more difficult. They're the
Mhm.
ones that I'm having struggles with, but I'm not quitting. They're just a
That's right.
lot more difficult. But yeah, I play piano and guitar almost every day just to learn. I just need to get that muscle memory in, the strength in, and then once that comes back, the music that I play will just be stuff that I want to learn. Like I think in what I want to do, I'd be happy doing something with music as a job if that came about. But like I said, I bought my microphone, and I'm happy just to do stuff at home, just to record, just to screw around. But
Absolutely.
life without music would be so boring.
It really would. Yeah, as someone who, music's been a huge part of my life. I have a tattoo on my forearm dedicated to that. And so I have a question for you, because this is
Yeah,
something that's happened to me, and it's honestly something I've had a little bit of a hard time letting go of. As
yeah.
I've gotten more into my spiritual journey, music that I used to love and really resonated with, I have a harder time listening to now. Like I grew up listening to like hard rock and metal and all of that type of stuff.
Okay.
And now I go like sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, "Oh, this is still awesome." And other times I'm just like, "Wow, like this really just doesn't I don't connect with it the same way
Doesn't
as I
get.
used to." In your spiritual journey, have you had anything like that happen where it's changed your tastes, like you're attracted to new different frequencies of music, um,
Yeah.
as you've kind of grown in that way?
It's funny you say that. It hasn't happened with music, and the this is the last time I'm going to say my age. I'm 49. So when I was DJing, Ministry of Sound was massive. Ibiza, they were putting out records. The stuff that they played was epic, right? And if you really listen to a lot of their stuff, it's orchestral based. So there's a lot of orchestra in the build-ups, in the drops, everything like that. A month ago, actually, so I was in Peru, so it must have been 2 months ago, Ministry of Sound was doing a tour, an orchestral tour, and they're still doing it now,
Wow.
and they were in Sydney. And I wanted to go, and I didn't want to go on my own. And I said to my sister, I said, I want to go to Ministry of Sound. Will you come with me? I'll buy the tickets. She's like, all right. And she's not into that sort of thing. And it was an open air venue, and you have two stages. So there's a DJ at one stage, and then there's a live performance stage. So they all had DJs running. I ended up spending a little extra in getting the VIP experience, which wasn't very VIP, outside of the fact that the location was perfect to see the stage if you didn't want to be in the mosh pit. So
Mhm.
that was probably the best part of it. And then an hour in, it was all DJs. And my sister messaged her husband because it was funny because I said, I don't know if I can say this so you can edit it out, but I told her that I was going to take mushrooms. And I said, I'll give you some mushrooms, but I'll give you like a little microdose so that you don't go and see Jesus or something like that. And it ended up not doing anything for both of us because the dose was so small. But
Mhm.
an hour in, she messaged her husband. She's like, yeah, I'm over it. And then the next act that came onto the stage was Sneaky Sound System. Now they're an old band from back in the day, and their music is brilliant, so good. But it was actually only a DJ and the vocalist, the lead vocalist, the singer. But as soon as she came out, my sister was like, "This is amazing!" And blah. So they were the act, the prelude to the orchestra. The orchestra came out, and I'm lucky enough to know, like, I have a friend who sings for Ministry of Sound, so she was there, and that was another reason I went because I wanted to see her performance live. And she came out with the orchestra, and I think she sung like three or four songs. We were so you know how I danced at Denver,
Mhm.
sorry, at Dallas. Dallas, right? You can imagine that was me for 3 hours straight
Oh
listening
my
to Ministry of
God.
God.
Oh, you were
So my
probably in
sister,
heaven.
I was in heaven. It was the best time. It was so good. And the funniest thing was, it was my sister. And actually, I had a What Would Love shirt do on. So it was
Oh,
quite funny.
nice.
And
Nice.
someone that was behind us come down and said, "Oh, you guys are couples goals. All you've done is just like go off all night." And my sister's like, "That's my brother." And we're just like, "Yeah, not a couple. Maybe sibling goals. That's what you're looking at."
Yeah.
And I know I tangent and I do that a lot, but to answer your question, not in music. What has changed in my taste is movies. And as
Mm.
someone who got was in film production, like I was an actor and a stunt performer and helped produce, and like that was the reason I moved to America. I was such a fan of horror and thriller and some of these older style of like movies. And now I look at them, I'm just like not quite as interested in them anymore. And I think that the genre has changed a lot as well. But definitely, and I think that my time in America also solidified the change because my ex-wife didn't like horror, so there was never a horror movie watched with
Mm.
us together. It was a lot of Disney, but that's where my love of movies with songs came in. Like I was never a big musical person, but I sort of got into that more and more and more and more. Then The Greatest Showman came out, and I was addicted, and it was just like things like that. So for me, music hasn't changed so much. I really still like a lot of the old stuff I like, and I have a very eclectic taste. I'm really getting into country now, which I never used to, but it was like R&B, hip hop, rock, ballads, like you name it. And I was really big into acoustic stuff, so I love Jack Johnson, Donovan Frankenreiter, like all of those old school guys, which is why Ed Sheeran like resonated so much with me. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for me, the biggest change has been movies and cinema.
Interesting. I that has also been I've experienced something similar, except more so for me, it's that I went from watching things and now I have a really hard time watching anything. It's so weird.
Interesting.
Just like sitting down to watch a movie or a show, I'm just like my insides just get. I'm just like I don't know. I like,
Oh,
and it's not to say like right or wrong. It's just simply like that's how I feel.
yeah.
My body's just like we don't want to do this anymore.
And that's
So
fair. You're
yeah,
changing so much.
yeah, and I always wonder. I'm like, okay, it makes me think of why was I doing this thing? Because if it's like if I really enjoyed it, and the reason why I sat down and watched the show was because I enjoyed it, then my body
Yeah.
probably wouldn't react this way to it. But it was probably there was an emotion there I was trying to numb or something that I am now
Yep.
feeling and now dealing with, and because of that change, that whatever emotion that whatever I was watching was bringing up, I feel no longer feel connected to, and my
Yep.
body's like we don't like that, I don't like that emotion anymore, which I think
Yep.
is really cool to experience. It's uncomfortable, but
Yeah, for sure.
it's cool to experience. Yeah, I was gonna say, so in Dallas, is this country music after we were in Dallas, or did that start beforehand?
Prior. No, I did. There was a few songs that kept coming up on the radio, and I used to go to this when I first got back home from America last year in July. I wanted to get out and meet people and do something, right? So one of the things that was musically based was I used to go to a mic night and just watch. Just I used to go and eat a steak, have a couple of beers, and just watch these people perform. And there was a dude who just performed country every week, and then I
Hmm.
started hearing it on the radio, and then I was like, all right, this is not as bad as I thought. And then
Yeah.
just recently, like I think the guy's name is Zach Bryan.
Oh yeah.
Some of his music came out, and then I've got his album, and I was like, "This is brilliant!"
Hmm.
Just the lyrics. Yeah, so I've actually gotten into country a lot more, but not because of Dallas.
Hmm. Because they were blasting us with it in Dallas. It was like
Yeah.
everywhere you went, they were. It was always the only time we didn't hear country was when we were sitting in the meditation room, basically.
Yeah,
Which,
no, I do like it.
yeah.
It's a good change. Like, yeah, for sure.
Hmm. So if you had one artist, dream collaboration, who would it be?
Oh, Ed Sheeran, instantly. 100%. I love his stuff. To me, and it's super funny because I talk about how bad I feel my singing is, and everyone, and it could have been around for a while, but recently I've seen on YouTube come about, and it must have been on he was on Graham Norton or Edward Norton, whatever the English guy is that he does that talk show with, um, and he's like, people say like I'm so talented and I'm this and this. And he whips out a YouTube video of him when it was like, I want to say it was 2016. And he's like, this is me in 2016. And he played it and it was horrific. It was off key. It was terrible. And he's like, 4 years. 4 years before the 18 was released, that's what I sounded like before. And I'm just like, all
God.
right. Yes, you're super talented. Like, don't get me wrong, because he's got like his creativity is bonkers, like insane. But it's also hard work, right? It's
Hmm.
just hard work, you know? It gets to that point of how much do you want it? How much do you want to get better? And just do it. So I think
Yeah.
that for me, that kind of collaboration would be insane. Yeah.
I think that might be because I do talk about music so much. That might be a question that I ask just everyone that comes on here, regardless of whether we talk about music or we talk about genetics or
Yeah.
whatever the fuck. I'm just gonna be like, hey, who's
Yeah.
your who's your dream collab? I love that. And he's so great because he's so versatile with
Yes.
what he can do. Like he has such a wide range. Like if he wanted to sing like rock or metal, he could absolutely do it.
Yep.
Like if he wanted to do country, he could do it. He could do.
I mean,
He doesn't get.
he
Yeah.
raps so well. Like his story is like Eminem was his idol. He taught him how to. Well, Eminem's album, I think it was Stan or something, was like the album that helped him stop stuttering when he was younger. It was the one
Wow.
thing he just kept singing it and singing it and singing it and singing, and then his stutter went away. Here's a great story like on Netflix about him. It was like a four-part series, really, really good.
And that's awesome because it's like you never know what giving your gifts to the world, like how it's gonna help someone. Like who would have thought? And probably Eminem when he released it. Oh, like I'm gonna help this this British kid stop stuttering, who's eventually gonna go
Yeah,
on to be like one of the most iconic singers of the 21st century.
absolutely.
And it's like, it's just another reason to like just like give your fucking gifts. It doesn't matter if it
Yes.
helps one person or you make a gigantic impact. Like
Yeah.
I it keeps coming back to like we're all meant to do this thing together, and
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
reason why there's so many of us, because yeah, we all come from the same place. We are all of source, but
Hmm.
we express consciousness in this world in different ways, and every
Yeah,
single
very
way that
differently.
consciousness is expressed is valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%.
There's no wrong way to express consciousness. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that we've learned in meditation, and we all have such different experiences in meditation. If you could give one piece of advice to a new meditator, someone who feels sort of unconfident in their abilities, what would it be?
Goodness. Just purely based on my experience, don't don't make it work. Like don't put the meditation as I have to meditate. And what we talked about earlier, don't do it to achieve something. Like I still fall into that trap. Like we talked about Peru, we didn't go through the ayahuasca stuff. We talked about that. And I did have like a small ulterior motive when I did that because I wanted that mystical experience. But definitely don't chase it. And I think Dr. Joe says the same thing. Don't chase the outcome, just be in the moment. That's something that I'm dealing with at the moment is I'm an outcome chaser. I'm like, I want this, and I really forget that the process, the journey, the grind is where it's at. And I feel like you lose a lot of time by not being present in the grind. So being part of, I want to do this. The outcome will happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I want to do this to change. I want to do this to be better. So that would be my thought process, is really let go of that outcome and just be present in the act. which I think is pretty cliche because I feel like that gets said a lot. And I've never been that person who's been like, okay, I'll just do that. But I really feel like, especially after Peru and Dallas, letting go of that outcome and like looking at and feeling the intricacies of the act, especially with like something like the breath, the movement of energy, right? My goal is to move energy, right? So I'll let go of that goal in that why haven't I moved energy? And kind of like I love how you said it at Dallas is like you like playing with energy. I'm just like, all right. And Dr. Joe says the same, but it's Dr. Joe, right? But
Yeah.
having it from
Yeah.
someone like a peer, someone like yourself, it's like, all right, stop trying to force the outcome, right? Just play with what you've got. If nothing happens, that's fine, but just be happy in the knowledge that you're doing in the moment, and the outcome will happen. Because what happens if you do the breath and nothing happens, right? But you've just played with it and everything, and then 4 hours later you're laying down, you're tired or whatever, and then all of a sudden your energy moves. Like you wouldn't have expected that outcome. You wouldn't have expected it. It didn't have to happen in the
Exactly.
moment. So kind of that's where I'm at now, and that would be my biggest advice is play with the moment as opposed to expecting the outcome.
Yeah. I love play with the moment. I love that. It's because
Could be a
it's
shirt.
funny. Like, yeah, yeah. I might have to have you make that. Is honestly that would if I'm gonna trademark one and be like I'm gonna stamp my idea. That would be my one because it's like now that is my mindset. Now I still fall back into exactly what you're talking about, trying to get the outcome, especially with this new business that I'm starting and everything.
Yeah.
I got like I gotta get it off the ground. I gotta do this, gotta do that, and I was like, meditating on it every day. I was doing my walks
Yeah.
on it. I was doing, trying to feel it all the time, and it it got tiring. Like
Yeah.
chasing that outcome, and then in Dallas, like was really really good for me because we got there, we had this group of four of us, and we kind of like we meditated our asses off, but like we
Yeah.
had so much fun over the weekend, and it
Yes.
brought this joy back to the practice where I had gotten a little caught up in the doing and the outcoming and
Yeah.
the all of that. And the playing thing has been a recent revelation for me where it's like this is way more fun if I'm like, God, I'm not feeling it today. I know I'm not supposed to do the breath in the middle of a meditation, but I'm going to fucking do the breath. Like, I don't care. Or like we're laying down and I'm like, I got to move. Like something's got to move. And I'll do it
Yeah.
then. You know, it's like Dr. Joe, he said it a few times. He's like, don't become a slave to your practice.
Hmm.
Don't let the mastery of it be something that tortures you.
Yep.
Relish in it. It's like every time
Yeah.
like I get this opportunity to connect to myself just a little deeper.
Yep.
And that's and it's so hard to think that way in our lives because there's so much programming that's been done in terms of the way we're supposed to achieve in the world and a lot of this, it's so funny, like as much as we're learning with doing this work, we are unlearning just as much.
Oh my God. Yeah. For sure.
And so definitely did want to touch on the ayahuasca thing
Oh,
because
that just
it's
popped back into my head.
yeah. No, thank you for bringing it up because because that is that like a lot of the mystical experiences and everything, like the ayahuasca gives a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so were there any really big takeaways? Like was there any really deep learning that came from that, or was it more like oh, this is a cool experience, I'm seeing things fly around and whatnot?
Yeah. Good question. So the experience on the first night. So I also was not. I didn't really take the seriousness of the abstaining and the lead up to the ceremony as serious as I should have. They have like some places do a month, but this is like 2 weeks. Reduce to eliminate red meat, no alcohol. They actually talk about no sex, no self pleasure, and a couple of other things. And I'm like, that's pretty freaking intense. But just finishing a 5 day Inca Trail walk, I had a beer, a couple of beers over the couple of days prior, and ate meat So I think that the next time I do it, and I will do it again, I don't know when, and I'm not going to force it. It'll happen when it happens. But I think the next time I do it, I will be a lot more strict in my lead up to that. I personally feel like I walked away from Peru, ayahuasca, and Dallas more emotionally stable than I went in. I feel like I had some really good healing that while I didn't feel the healing, it happened. And Dallas, I was lucky enough to be a Healy, so I was right in the center of that sort of stuff. But during the ayahuasca, the first night, the first ceremony, essentially the way it works is ayahuasca is a root, and there's a second plant that's used. Ayahuasca helps to block the absorption of the second plant, and the second plant is mainly DMT. And when that goes into your belly, that DMT can be absorbed in your intestines, right? So because your intestines are the main area for where you get all your nutrients, if not the only area. So what happens is the ayahuasca plant blocks that from getting absorbed into the intestines, and that then allows it to go to your brain, which is where the mystical experiences come from because of the excess of DMT. So on the first night, I had my shot. So you get a shot, and then after about an hour, nothing really happened. So I had a little bit more. And the feeling is like you can almost feel every cell in your body. Something's happening. I did a lot of drugs when I was younger. I did a lot of ecstasy, and the feeling is very similar in that it's just like your brain just goes into overdrive. Just it's so hard to describe. But what happened for me was I didn't get any of that full-on mystical experience. I had some visuals, and the easiest way for me to describe it is when you watch the movie Predator, and Predator like puts on his invisible cloak, he's walking through the jungle. You kind of see his translucent outline as he walks through, and you just see the trees behind. That's what I saw when I was looking at the ceiling. I'm like, I saw these odd shapes, and they were moving around. And that was it. And then probably about 3 or 4 hours later, I purged, and that was it. And then the shamans, we had our meeting the next day, and I told the shamans about it, and they're like, you're on the edge of like looking into the spirit world. Like that's a good sign. And I saw a lot of white, and they're like, white means that you don't really need to be cleansed. And the way that the spiritual act of the ceremony is that they say that ayahuasca, it's like it has a mind of its own. So you take it and it'll scan your body, and it'll look for things that need to heal or fix or whatever. And then it will decide whether you're ready to look into the spirit world. It'll decide because it'll know, which I feel is really an interesting thought process. And so they said that the white represented you didn't need much to be cleansed at that time. And then the visuals were like you were close to the thing. And I'm like, that's awesome. And then the second night, I was super disappointed because my trip came on, my ceremony came on in within about half an hour. Usually it takes an hour to an hour and a half to work. Mine came on within like half an hour, so I was feeling like really good. And then within an hour, after an hour, I purged the first time. I was like, shit, well, that's not good. And then I was in and out of just a feeling, no visuals or anything, for another 2.5 hours. And then I was sick again. So I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this happening? And then I ended up leaving the ceremony about 20 minutes early because at that time, nothing else was going on. So I talked to the shamans the next day, and they're like, well, not everyone gets to see the mystical experience or experience the spirit world first, second. Sometimes it could be a dozen times before you see it. And they're like, what they felt was that there was nothing negative while they were, because they chant in front of you as well. Because what happens is, and I know I'm jumping around, but they also take a bit of ayahuasca so that they can be in the spirit world with you, and then they help you, and they chant in front of you for like 10 or 15 minutes to help that experience along. And they're like, nothing that we saw while we were there was negative. Like it was nothing bad. It just means that it felt like you're not ready for that experience. And I was really bummed the next day. And I was like really down, and we were leaving the next day. So I kind of kept to myself because all of these other participants had these magic experiences. Like one person was lifted out of a body, another dude saw like snakes and the puma and the condor. And I was like, this is fucked up, man. I didn't get this shit. So knowing that I was going to bring people down, I kind of just kept my distance. And then as the day progressed on, I was, whatever. Then the next day I woke up, I felt really good. I was like, all right, it didn't happen, and that's fine. But I emotionally felt pretty good. I was like, all right, so maybe there's more to it than you need to see a mystical experience. And I think this is very similar with Dr. Joe's work. You don't need to see a mystical experience or feel certain things to know that movement and change is happening. And so for me, I feel like the healing through that experience was exponentially more than I could have imagined going into it. And it's really difficult to understand what you can expect. And I said this to my sister the other day, and it's like, emotionally and like physically, I'm in a better place now after that month period of Dallas and Peru than I was prior to leaving. And I feel like it was worth it to know that how good I feel now, even though I've got however long to go, but however good I feel now was worth that whole thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
I actually, in terms of just like speaking about it, I think it's really valuable for you to share that you didn't have any like crazy visuals, crazy mystical experiences, yet you still feel a profound change in your life. And like, because again, like, what's the intention? What's the thing? It's like, maybe you did want to go and have the mystical experience, but what if you had the mystical experience and nothing changed? Like, would you rather have the mystical experience and nothing change, or have no mystical experience and, feel very different?
Yeah. And I think that that's a good point. I did go in with that. I wanted to do it, but I also feel like I went in with the right intention, is that I wanted to heal something. I wanted to move forward from my pain, and that intention overrode, is that a word? Overrode the mystical experience intention, I think.
So, as we're coming to an end, just want to, where can people find you, whether it's social media, website, what are you working on? Plug yourself shamelessly.
Yeah, so I mean, the basics are, the website is going to be quantumapparel.com, and there's a hyphen between Quantum Apparel. The shop's up and running, everything's good to go. And our only other main source of social media is going to be Instagram, and that is at Quantum Apparel 7. The big thing is we're just building an audience now. We have a pre-sale on for 14 days, so you can get in there with a 10% discount code, which is on the website, and pick up whatever you want. That may change. We may even do something for the listeners here. We might even set up a special promo code for like 15 or 20% off, and then we can push that out via like an email or something like that. But for the moment, we're just looking to build our audience and spread the love.
Amazing. Yeah, I will definitely, in future pods, I will be repping the Quantum Apparel for sure. So Bret, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure. And it's just, thank you for the insight and sharing your experiences, and just really grateful to have the opportunity to have you on.
No worries, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, this is my first one. It was super fun. I love talking, as you can tell, and I have tangents coming out the wazoo. So
Awesome.
Everything that can talk about, I can talk about. But no, it's been awesome. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Of course. All right, everyone. I will see you next time on Creating Genius.